Hello there, I'm Funky Monkey. Welcome to History of Turrican. Now, it should come as no surprise to you that Turrican was a huge success on all the formats on which it appeared. And so, it was only natural that Rainbow Arts were asked to provide a sequel. This sequel appeared in 1991, a year after the original. Turrican II, sometimes subtitled The Final Fight, was developer Manfred Trenz's last game for the Commodore 64, but it also appeared on other formats. As with the last episode, I'll be going through the game world by world and highlighting a system for each world. But this time, I'll also be informing you of the little nuances of each version as they crop up. But before we get to the game itself, let's talk a little bit about the Legend of Bren McGuire, Turrican II's justly famous backstory. The year is 3025, and Lieutenant Bren McGuire is serving aboard the starship Avalon 1. Suddenly, the ship is boarded by the evil overlord known as the Machine. His underlings slaughter all but McGuire, whom the Machine leaves for dead. But Bren McGuire lives and, equipping himself with the new Turrican assault suit, sets forth on a roaring rampage of revenge. This is the start of your one-man war against the Machine, facing down Hornets, Walkers, Clingers, Droppers, Sentries, Slime Monsters, and a crazy robot warrior. Not to mention the warhead at the end of this world. World 1 is more impressive than its precedent, being more colourful and more hectic, assailing you with enemies from the start and not letting up for a moment. Chris Hulsbeck returns on musician duties with arguably his best work, or at least one of the best. For World 1, we have The Desert Rocks, an upbeat opener that really sets the tone for the opening world, and by comparison, the end boss theme of 1-2, Warhead, a downright despairing tune which reflects the scale of your task. 8-bit ports contain an extra secret room in 1-2, filled with diamonds and 1-ups. And this time, only 100 diamonds earns you an extra continue. Arguably the definitive port of Turrican II, the Amiga version is the perfect start to proceedings. Crisp, colourful graphics, sound effects that are easy on my ears, if no one else's, and a score that is at turns jaunty, inspiring, unsettling, settling, and always an enhancement to the action on screen. The fanboy in me would declare this the only way to experience this game on 16-bit, especially considering the console reversions. But we're not all ruled by our inner fan geeks. This remains, then, an impressive achievement of the video gaming arts. In this world, snappers, cave spiders, spike heaps, spiky balls, and even fish are out for a taste of Bren. But if you survive, you can look forward to facing down a giant sentry and the Gripper, a fearsome heavily armed super drone aircraft. World 2 has an organic theme, decorated with honeycomb-like hexagonal structures, weathered stone, and a large underwater section, accompanied by the Great Bath, a wonderful waltz. The C64 port gives the giant sentry boss the worrying ability to detach from his moorings and take flight. This isn't one of the better ports of Turrican II. While Enigma Variations at least furnish us with a title theme this time around, the Desert Rocks if you're wondering, the rest of the score doesn't make an appearance. The graphics are a nightmare of colour clash, to the point of making the main sprite all but invisible at times. Also, the mechanics don't feel as tight, some of the jumps in World 5 becoming frustratingly difficult. However, the levels themselves are as big as ever, and the sound effects are a definite improvement from the beeps and boops of Probe's Turrican I port. Essentially, while I can't call any version of Turrican II the worst, this is in my opinion the least impressive. And yet, for all its faults, it still remains worthy of at least a look. Bren boards a starfighter for an all-out blastathon. World 3 switches the run-and-gun platforming of the previous worlds for a straight-up side-scrolling shoot-'em-up in the classic style. And beware, because it's not just the enemies that are out to get you in 3-2. The scrolling will trip up the unwary player. In my own opinion, this is a bold move by Trends and his team to change the genre of the game for 3 levels. Hulsbeck's 16-bit score adds an extra degree of arcade feeling to this world, but there's something to be said for the C64 version score, as provided by Markus Siebold. In the 16-bit versions, the gunship boss of 3-2 has a sting in the tail, leaving you unable to fire, which isn't so bad, considering that there's only the boss to face, and you do get repaired for the boss fight. And I have to mention the Cuticus Lives Easter egg in the Amiga and C64 versions. Arguably the definitive 8-bit version, and arguably the original, the C64 version is bright, bold, and brimming with character. And while Hulsbeck's score is noticeably absent from this edition, in its place, Stefan Hartwig provides a menacing loader and intro tune, and Markus Siebold takes up musician duties from the title screen onward with a confident array of tunes. As for the sound effects, they're as punchy as ever, though I found the bounce cannon's distinctive squidge to grate on me at times. Unfortunately, the game isn't perfect, suffering as it does from occasional graphical glitching. But this is nitpicking. The soul of Turrican, the beating heart of the franchise, is right here. And once again, the fanboy in me would proclaim this game a gaming diamond. And I'm disinclined to disagree. The C64 version of Turrican II remains a good, solid game, and comes highly recommended. If you've ever wondered where walkers come from, this is the place. World 4 is a maze, and can get incredibly tricky if you're not careful. And while it's possible to take a shortcut in 4.1 and avoid the boss entirely, the machine's production line in 4.2 cannot be avoided. World 4 is also a claustrophobic duology, a nightmare of stone walls and constricting machinery. The enemies are all based on walk designs, or on machinery and automation in general, and the score is suitably industrial, with a hip-hop beat only adding to the ambience. Eight-bit versions include an amusing penalty for bringing the gyroscope mode too close to the level 4-2 boss encounter. Yow! Enigma Variations also ported Turrican II to the Amstrad CPC,
once again using the desert rocks for a title theme. And the improvement is immediately noticeable. The graphics are colourful, and the main sprite, even in his sickly shade of green, puts me in mind of the promotional artwork, at least more so here than in any other version. The sound, crashy and punchy as ever, remains commendable, even if the rest of Hulsbeck's score is left entirely unused. And unfortunately, the battle between Specky and CPC was always going to be for the silver medal, as neither of these versions is anywhere near as smooth as the C64 original. And yet, this is a closer second than one might think, at least in my opinion. This is the Geiger-esque Nightmare, a techno-organic horror show of steel tendrils, razor-sharp toothed mouths, slime, and spiders. The machine will be waiting for you at the end of this world, providing you can navigate his base and face down the unholy creations and indescribable things that his unfathomable cruelty has seen fit to create. I've always found World 5 to be the most difficult world of the game, as some of the jumps require pixel-perfect precision, and the timed platforms of 5.2 require your full attention. However, the horror ambience is greatly enhanced by the timely stabs of the score, at some points little more than a heartbeat, and at others, a terrifying repeating motif. Of course, 5.2 goes in entirely the opposite direction, with an up-tempo track which puts me in mind of the final countdown. The timed platforms of the 16-bit versions weren't included in the 8-bit ports, which instead make 5.2 into a vertically scrolling shooter, akin to 3.1 and 3.3 of Turrican I. As with Turrican 1, Factor 5 handled the conversion, the sound is by Jochen Hippel, and the frame rate is halved. The graphics are near as make no difference, identical to the Amigas, losing none of their charm or character. The score and sound effects are once again delivered via the YM2149 sound chip, giving Hulsbeck's originals a raw bit-pop edge. And while perfectionists may prefer the sheer frame rate and polished instrumentations of the Amiga original, ST gamers can rightly be proud of this port. It has the feel, the soul, the score, and the scope. Let no one tell you that this isn't Turrican II. All of which concludes the world-by-world analysis, but there's still one more system to feature. Ported to the then humble IBM PC in the mid-1990s by developers Sun Project, this version has had a massive graphical overhaul. And while I find the new main sprite much less charming than the Amiga or C64 versions, and frankly quite comical, the upgraded backgrounds and enemies are much more impressive. And that's the lot. Sadly, most of these systems were discontinued as the 1990s ploughed on, but for a couple of them at least, there was still one more Turrican game to come. Join me next time as we dive into the curious case of Turrican 3. See you there!